your hand off my penis!
Holy crap, Patrick Hollenstein and PMP Knives have done it again. I cannot tell you how much I love this brand. The creativity, the uniqueness, and the balls to the wall, over the top attitude that this entire brand has is absolutely crazy. Now, what we're going to be taking a look at today is the new PMP Knives Kodiak. This is a brand spanking new model, and this, as a matter of fact, is one of the pre-production versions of this model. And the way that you see it here in the video is pretty much 100% of the way that you're going to see it when you buy one. It's hard to not just sit here and go, ooh and ah, and make all kinds of silly noises instead of actually speaking, but I'm going to do my best. And as I mentioned speaking, there's going to be somebody else speaking about this knife very, very soon. And that is my buddy Mike Emler. Go over and check out his channel. I will put a link to his video down below in the description, so you can just click on it. You don't have to go searching for it, but it's Mike Emler Crazy Sharp, and that's his YouTube channel. He also has one of these, and he's going to be doing his take on it. And typically, while he and I feel pretty similarly about most knives, he always has a slightly different take than I do, or maybe I just have a slightly different take than he does, however you'd like to word it. But he texted me yesterday as I was photographing this one, and he's like, look what just arrived, I can't wait to get into it. And I said, well, I'm going to be getting into mine too, so let's do something collaborative. So I'll toss it off to him at the end here. Now, this is the packaging that you'll be receiving with the knife. As always, a nice waterproof plastic box. And something they began doing, I think about a year or so ago, are these really, really nice COA cards with the graphics on them. Gives you a basic rundown of the materials and sizes and who designed it, all that kind of good stuff. Because they do work with a handful of designers to give such, I don't know, I guess such a good variation to the themes that they have in their collection. Now, you might be looking at this and going, that just looks like a frag patterned beast or alpha beast. And you wouldn't be too terribly wrong, because it's the same basic shape of the handle and almost the same size. But here's where the differences lie. The Alpha Beast that I've shown you in several videos, 400 thousandths of an inch thick blade stock, whereas on the Kodiak, it's only 196 thou thick. So far under a quarter of an inch, and this one's nearly a half an inch. So yeah, pretty crazy, pretty nuts, and that makes this a lot easier to carry than that big boy. It's also going to have a different shaped blade. On the Alpha Beast, you have an Americanized Tanto, and on the Kodiak, you have a standard drop point. It's almost, I almost want to call it a spear point, to be perfectly honest with you, because both the spine of the blade and the edge of the blade come to meet just about in the middle, instead of the spine of the blade dipping down at the tip all the way down. So it kind of meets in the middle there. So there's your side-by-side on those two. Lengthwise, almost identical. Blade length, almost identical. A lot of the things are very, very similar, but this is going to be much, much easier to actually carry. If you like to carry a bigger knife, you're in good shape. That knife can pretty much fit inside of this handle. It's kind of crazy. So we'll start things off with the TLDW, Too Long Didn't Watch, in case you, for some reason, click on reviews and don't actually want to sit and listen to an entire review. I kind of summarize the main points of everything in just a couple of minutes. And then from the TLDW, we'll get to the specs, and then we'll get to my personal thoughts and any stories I have or anything like that. So let's get to that TLDW. The pros. I really, really, really like the frag pattern on this. One of the things that bothers some folks with titanium frame locks is the fact that they could be a little bit slippery. We'll use the PMP Knives Berserker as an example. So this is just bead blasted and stone washed. Actually, is it even stone washed? I don't remember. I think it's just bead blasted. Yeah, just bead blasted. So it's a little bit slick in the hand. Not really a concern for me. However, it is for some people. When you get into the frag pattern, you've got something that's a lot grippier. And even without that, the way this comes down and wraps around your hand, I should say, is almost like a fighter style knife. So you've got a really prominent finger choil here that creates a finger guard. And then you have basically like the rear guard here that kind of holds you in place. So it didn't really need to be fragged, but I really like that it is. And you've got that gear shape, the raised gear backspacer, which again is more of that frag look. Overall, I think it's a handsome look, and it feels really, really nice in the hand. The frag definitely helps it stand out from all of its brothers in the collection. Because I think I have pretty much every large-scale PMP knife that there is. So I got the Alpha Smilodon, the Alpha Beast prototype, the Alpha Beast here with the Damasteel, the Ares, which has become pretty much my favorite large-size knife, and of course the Berserker. So I think that the frag pattern really does help set it apart from all the rest. Next up, another pro for me is the action. And this is something that PMP gets right with every single knife. Even if it's crazy and unwieldy like the Alpha Beast, it flips out really, really easily, drops closed nice and smooth without being a guillotine. Because you got to realize with these big, thick, heavy blades, if you don't have the right amount of tension on the lock bar, which really that's going to be set by the lock bar cutout and heating up the lock bar to adjust it. If you don't have that right, this blade would just slam back closed immediately. Or if the pivot were too loose to give you this sensation of a smooth, fast action, then upon the close, it would be just downright dangerous. And this is a nice, controlled, smooth, slow close, almost hydraulic. Perfectly centered. Construction quality is top-notch. You would not understand that you're holding a full-on production knife that's made overseas, made in China. You would not think that just by holding the knife. Once this is presented to you and you're playing with it, all you could think of is, man, this thing is really, really well made. It's substantial without being ridiculous and too over the top. I don't want to say that it's not over the top, because compared to what most people will EDC, this is still going to be a very, very, very large knife. Love the custom pivot. Unique to PMP knives. Very slick, very cool. Hardware is all T8. Done very nicely. I like the fact that they do a high radial satin finish on them. Actually, they're polished machine finishes. My apologies. So it's a nice two-tone effect off of this dark matte gray that you get in the bead blasted and stone washed titanium. And with the blade as well, because the blade is also pretty dark as well. So it's a nice two-tone effect without being over the top. Over the top seemingly is going to be the the fallback phrase I'm going to so often in this review. All right, now, and are there any cons? Well, I think for the majority of people, the extra large size might be a con for a lot of people. I like it. It's not often I carry a knife this large. Honestly, though, when I do, it generally is going to be one of the PMP knives that I have because they're just built so well, they feel so good, that even if you pull it out and somebody goes, that is clownishly, ridiculously too big, that must be some piece of crap gas station knife. Then they put it in their hand and go, wow, this is made to a completely different standard. It feels really good. The finish work is really done well. The machining is done well. The action, the fitting of everything. So this is clearly not a gas station knife. It just has a very over-the-top, there we go again with it, over-the-top, with that larger-than-life personality that all of Patrick's knives have. Any other cons? There may be people that really despise any kind of lanyard opening in their knives. I like the fact they didn't just drill a hole all the way through the frame and you just have an empty hole there. This is the back spacer that's coming around, and then they've notched away at the frame. So I like that. There may be people out there that just don't because they know they're never going to use a lanyard, so they don't want to have any kind of opening to take away from the look of the knife. Personally, I don't feel that it takes away from the look at all. And that's pretty much it. No, I'm gonna put one more con in there. It's not a huge deal, but anybody that's ever owned a frag type titanium frame lock knows that if you don't put a little bit of a landing pad that's completely smooth right underneath where the clip makes contact with the body, that it can sometimes be hard to jam it into your pocket or get it to extract. So this one, when you're wearing jeans, the jeans are going to want to snag on the frag, on the milled lines in there, and it could be a little bit harder to get in. You may have to do the old pry up on the pocket clip. Oh, wow, I didn't realize that. Wow. That is a lot more flexible than all of the other clips. Well, this one is pretty flexible. So yeah, I guess if I had to put a con in there, it'd be that I wish there was a smoothed out area in the body of the knife so that there was a less of a chance of it snagging on the seam of your pocket. Now we'll get into the specs. That's pretty easy. Put that right over there. And I'm going to do what I've been doing lately, which is just putting the specs up on the screen for a few seconds, and then you can pause it and read it as slow as you like or as quickly as you like instead of narrating all the way through it, because that usually adds a couple of minutes to the video runtime. So what you're looking at here is obviously a titanium frame lock. They're about $400. So especially if you're buying from Tools for Gents, that's right about the price that you're going to pay. Overall length, 9 1/4 inches. Blade length of 3.93 inches and blade stock of 196 thou, which is just about, it's a little bit thicker than the Aries. Just about the same as on the Berserker. And substantially less than the Alpha Beast. So, my personal thoughts on this bad boy. If you're a fan of Direware and Medford knives, you're going to fall madly in love with this because it's got that same big, beefy, substantial feel to it, but it doesn't go quite as far as some of the Medford knives do. It actually even has kind of a Medford shape going on to it as well, some of the newer models that Greg has made. And I think that it's made so well that you could justify the price. And there's two different ways to look at the price. One is, well, if I'm looking at pretty much anything else in this size range, especially with machining like this nice frag pattern, because if you go to like Monkey Edge or something where they do a lot of collaborations with big name makers and big brands, and their signature look is the frag pattern, there's usually a pretty substantial upcharge to buy one of their exclusives. So you can look at it and go, well, if I buy a knife like that, or I buy a custom like a Medford or a Direware, I'm spending tremendously more. So this at about $400 is a great value. Then you've got the other way of looking at it, which is, okay, I'm buying a titanium frame lock, an M390 that's made in China, and $400 feels a little bit steep when compared to others in that realm. And I'm not going to argue that. $400 is still a good chunk of change for this knife. Would it be great if it was about $300? Yeah. Oh my God, I think it would be an absolute no-brainer at that point. And anybody that loves large knives would pretty much have to have one in their collection. At $400, I think it is going to restrict some of the buyers, but that also helps to maintain their exclusivity as well. Hey guys, sorry for the interruption, but I promise I will make this very, very brief. I want to thank those of you that have joined and become channel members. You are helping to support the channel and helping to continue the growth. And if you've been considering supporting the channel in any way, shape, or form, because I do not have channel sponsors, I don't shill anybody's products, I don't get paid for anything, I don't do affiliate links, so everything is completely self-funded. If you'd like to help out and watch the channel grow and get more great content coming your way, please do consider becoming a member. See if we can get a close-up on here. This one is not numbered. They've been doing a lot of numbering on their knives, so I was thinking maybe it was a numbered limited edition, but it's not. But they still never make a lot of any of these knives. So there's always a degree of exclusivity, whether it's 200 pieces, 300 pieces, it's still a very low production. And when they're done, that's it. They don't come back. Now, I'm not saying that Patrick's business model won't allow for that, but I don't recall ever seeing a production sellout and then come back and be made again. I think on the Beast, he made a couple of runs, but I believe that there were different ones. Like the original Beast may have been just a smooth body, like my Alpha Beast, and probably not anodized, probably just the bead blasted variations. And then round 2 came around. I think there were black ones. I think there were blue anodized, bronze anodized. So even if that was an additional run of the same knife, it was a big variance from the original that allowed it to stand out, and it allowed the people that own the originals to still have something exclusive. So that's another thing that you have to factor in with PMP knives. They're not out here like Benchmade or Spyderco or Cold Steel making thousands and thousands and thousands of one knife. Every one that you're buying is going to be exclusive to some degree and pretty rare. I like the grinds on this. It's a little bit shallow. I would have liked to have seen the bevel going up a little bit higher to allow for a different bevel angle to make it a little bit more slicey. But then again, you're not buying a nearly 200 thou thick blade with the intention of it being a super crazy slicey razor. It's sharp, obviously, very, very sharp, and the edge is done exceedingly well. But this is going to be that great tool for, cutting leather, cutting zip ties, cutting cables, things like that. It's going to do all of that, and it's going to do some finer cutting as well. It's just not going to be, it's not going to be a laser. It's not going to be razor thin and razor sharp, because it just can't be. If this quarter height grind was at least 50%, or a 3/4 grind where it's all the way up there, then the bevel geometry would have allowed it to be coming down a lot thinner, and it wouldn't be building up so quickly behind the edge. With this, if you're cutting through cardboard, it's going to do a great job. However, there's two things that's going to make it a little bit of a pain. Number one is the thumb stud. You see it is in the cutting path. And number two, the blade thickens up so much on this flat grind going up to the full blade stock that it might have a little more resistance to it than you might enjoy. But overall, really, really cool knife. I don't think that this is going to be an EDC knife for anybody. This is going to be that one that you reach for on the occasion that you feel like carrying a larger knife. Now, if you already own a few of the other PMP knives, it might be difficult to choose which one that you want to carry when you're in the mood to carry one of these larger knives. And I'll still tell you this right now. The Aries, the ergonomics on it, the way that they've done the milled texture on the frame, absolutely, utterly fantastic. And if I had to choose between these two knives, this would win hands down every day. It's a lot lighter. The ergonomics are that much better. And it's just different enough from everything else in my collection that I go, wow, I want to carry that today. So if you're shopping around and you're looking at this and the Aries pops up and the Berserker pops up, I'm going to tell you right now, between these two, I'd have a hard time choosing, but I do like that this is a flipper. But you're already going to know that when you're shopping, that you prefer buying a flipper or you prefer buying a thumb stud manual opener. So that's probably not going to be the defining characteristic that makes you choose one over the other. I love this as a utilitarian beast of a blade, pocket hog. You're going to feel it. You're going to know you're carrying it all day. You're going to put it in your hand and go, yeah. You're going to grunt a little bit when you put this in your hand and open it for the first time. You're going to go, holy shit. One more thing I should mention, which I apologize I didn't earlier, is the way they've done the frag on this. As I mentioned before, certain frag milling can be either too sharp on all the edges of each cube, or they're very cognizant of that, and then they soften it, and they soften it way, way, way too much, to where you're like, why even have the frag when it's almost like a smooth body at this point? This was done extraordinarily well. It's a really nice texture without feeling like it's snagging your skin every time you run it across. I do wish there was a little more care on the pivot, because I can feel the sharp edges on the pivot. Not a huge fan of that, be honest with you. And you can feel it on both sides. But yeah, it's relatively smooth without being slick or slippery on the frag pattern of the frame. So there you have it. That's my thoughts on the PMP Knives Kodiak. Again, I'll remind you, go down to the link in the description below to go watch Mike Emler's take on the knife. I don't know what he's going to say, because he's basically uploading it while I'm recording this. And we had made the agreement that we would hand off to each other, and I'll make sure that people get a chance to hear what he has to say, and vice versa. So go check out his review and see if he felt the same way about it that I did.